Hello and welcome to pesticide safety training for technicians using pesticides at non-agricultural sites for the US Virgin Islands. So for some introduction, the US Virgin Islands has adopted some new standards for pesticide workers who apply pesticides under direct supervision of a certified applicator. One of these standards requires annual training that can be presented by a certified applicator or a pesticide professional approved by the Department of Planning and Natural Resources Pesticide Program. This training satisfies that annual training requirement, as well as an additional training for pesticide handlers on agricultural sites. Please note that while VI, DPNR, and UVI will be providing this training periodically for the next year or so, going forward, these trainings are going to become less frequent. It will be the responsibility of the certified applicator to certify his or her technicians working under direct supervision. Records of this training given by the certified applicator, including names, dates, times, and signatures, will need to be maintained in case of an inspection. A copy of these training records will also need to be sent to DPNR. Contacts for that will be at the end. Again, welcome to the pesticide safety training for non-certified applicators or technicians. This presentation meets the training requirements for technicians using pesticides commercially under the direct supervision of a certified applicator on non-agricultural sites. In the US Virgin Islands, this training is required for technicians who use both restricted use and general use products. Examples of non-agricultural sites include wildland, urban areas, wood treatment facilities, structures, commodities, landscapes, golf courses, and other non-agricultural sites. I'm sure a lot of this information is not going to be new to most of you, but we're going to go through it, and then if you are a certified applicator, you'll be able to give this training to your technicians in the future. So federal regulations require that this training inform you about the pesticide hazards you or your technicians may encounter and demonstrate the steps that can be taken to protect yourself, family, and others from exposure. You'll learn about the specific responsibilities that apply to you and your supervisor when applying restricted use pesticides. As mentioned in the beginning, anyone who works in an agricultural setting where pesticides are used must comply with additional training requirements that are outlined in the Worker Protection Standard. We've added some supplemental slides to the end so that this presentation will satisfy both the commercial and private annual training requirements. So for any applicators who are new to working with pesticides, a pesticide is a substance used to control unwanted pests such as insects, weeds, and diseases. The EPA, or the United States Environmental Protection Agency, classifies pesticide products as restricted use or general use. Restricted use pesticides, or RUPs, are limited for purchase only by certified applicators or non-certified applicators under their direct supervision technicians. States and tribes may have more restrictive requirements, and it's important to know and comply with all applicable regulations, including those state and local restrictions. RUPs have the potential to cause significant harm to people and the environment if not used according to label instructions and without training. In the Virgin Islands, all direct supervision requirements apply to technicians using both RUPs as well as general use products. That's really important. What is the difference between a certified and non-certified applicator? So a certified applicator must be at least 18 years old. Commercial applicators and private applicators qualify as certified applicators after demonstrating their knowledge of pesticides and pesticide safety as specified by their state, tribe, or federal agency and obtain a license. A non-certified applicator or technician is a person who uses pesticides commercially only when under direct supervision of a certified applicator. In most cases, non-certified applicators for non-agricultural pesticide application must also be 18 years old. A pesticide technician must be at least 16 years old if both of the following are true. The technician is 1, using the pesticide under direct supervision of a private applicator who is an immediate family member, and 2, the pesticide is not a fumigant. Direct supervision means that a certified applicator is responsible for overseeing the safe and legal use of pesticides by their technicians. Under federal law, this means the certified applicator must provide the technician with a way to communicate immediately with the supervisor. The labeling directions of the pesticide product will determine if your supervisor must be present or if they can supervise from an off-site location. For commercial applicators, on-site direct supervision is required for any of the following scenarios. Application of termiticides, including subsurface, surface, or soil applications, as well as placement in masonry foundations. Any fumigants, with the exception of general use fumigants being applied to telephone poles, and any other pesticides that explicitly on the label require on-site supervision. For private applicators, on-site supervision is required only when the label requires it. Technicians may not use fumigants at all in agricultural settings. When conducting off-site supervision, the certified applicator must keep in mind the 1-3-5 rule. So the certified applicator must stay within 1 hour of contact of their technicians and the application site. The certified applicator can only supervise a maximum of 3 different locations, and across those 3 locations, they can only supervise a maximum of 5 technicians. So you have to be within 1 hour of all of your technicians. You can only supervise off-site 3 locations and only up to 5 technicians. If you have a 6th technician, there has to be a 2nd certified applicator. So certified applicators cannot direct or allow any non-certified person to work with pesticides, which includes mixing, loading, or applying pesticides without first being properly qualified, and that includes this training. So one way to be qualified is by completing this pesticide safety training within 12 months of before pesticide use. Commercial applicators must keep records of these qualifications for at least 3 years following each application that was conducted or assisted by a non-certified applicator. Additionally, of course, application records must be maintained. So the commercial applicator's principal place of business must maintain all application records for 3 years from the date the technician used the pesticide. It is the responsibility of the supervising certified applicator to keep these records. So we're moving on to some pesticide safety information on pesticides and residues. So common types of pesticides are insecticides, herbicides, fungicides. These can be applied as liquid sprays, powders, granules, or gases such as fumigants. Pesticides are intended to be toxic to specific pests, but can also be toxic to humans. Health effects from pesticides can differ between people depending on their overall health, age, or other factors, including the toxicity of the pesticide product itself. For these reasons, you should always take steps to minimize exposure to pesticides. Even the least toxic products can cause illness when not properly used. When using a pesticide, it is your responsibility to protect people, animals, and property and prevent harm to the environment, such as fish, wildlife, endangered species, or their habitats. When making an application, take precautions to prevent exposure from pesticides to yourself or others through drift, which is the movement of pesticide spray droplets, vapor, or dust from the application site, usually due to weather conditions like temperature inversion or wind. The smaller and lighter the droplet size is, the more prone it is to move away from the application site with air movement. Pesticides may also move away from a treated site through water runoff, which could contaminate other bodies of water, such as cisterns, wells. Avoid drift, runoff, or pesticide movement at all costs. Always check weather conditions and your surroundings before making an application to determine if it would cause harm or damage to people or property. If the application cannot be made without the potential for harm, it must be avoided or stopped. Take care to follow all the protections and restrictions on the label. The label is the law. Off-site movement of pesticides is a violation of pesticide laws. Once again, even when you are extremely careful to protect yourself and others during an application, there's still a chance for exposure. Pesticide residue is a small amount of pesticide that is difficult to detect but can still be harmful to your health depending on the amount and type of pesticide you're exposed to. Residue can be found wherever pesticides are applied, such as on treated plants, structures, and equipment. Residue is also found on dirty work clothes, used PPE, empty pesticide containers, and in areas used for storing and mixing pesticides. There are 4 common ways that pesticide exposure can enter your body. Those are through your eyes, nose, mouth, or skin. To reduce your health risks, always wear the PPE that is required by the product label and know where to find the decontamination supplies. Knowing what to do in an emergency can be critical in minimizing damage to your health caused by pesticide exposure. At a minimum, decontamination supplies should include soap, single-use towels, a change of clothes, and water for routine or emergency washing. If another source of clean water, such as a stream, lake, or pond, is closer to you, you should use that in an emergency. Additional emergency eye flushing supplies or an eye wash station may also be required in case of an accidental exposure of a pesticide to your eyes. Always check the product label. Moving on to the pesticide label. It is the responsibility of both the technician and the certified applicator to use each pesticide correctly by following the directions on the label. When you use an RUP, your supervising applicator must give access to the product label at all times when using the product, including mixing, loading, or applying. Labels are found on product containers and can give you information on the safe and effective use of the product. As an applicator, reading, understanding, and following all of the directions and application restrictions on a label is the most important part of your job. This includes information that might be with and not on the container, such as a detachable pamphlet or a separate manual. If you cannot read and understand the product's labeling, the supervising applicator must be able to explain it to you. The label is the law. In addition to the product label directions, the certified applicator must also provide the technician with instructions specific to the site, as well as instructions on the equipment being used, the method of application, and any precautions that need to be taken to perform the application. It's important to know the different parts of a pesticide label and the information within each part. You should always review the product label before using any pesticide. Restricted use pesticides contain a restricted use pesticide statement enclosed in a box located at the top front panel of the product label. This statement indicates why EPA classified the product as an RUP, whether its sale is limited to certified applicators only, or if technicians under the direct supervision can purchase or apply it. This statement will also let you know if the certified applicator must be physically present when you use the product. Other important information on the pesticide product labels include the brand name or the commercial name of the pesticide. This is usually the biggest, most noticeable word on the front of the label, and the EPA registration number, which is the unique number given to each pesticide by the EPA. This number identifies the product and gives medical personnel important information to use in an emergency. Signal words can also be found on the product label in capital letters on the front panel and indicate how poisonous the product is. There are 4 signal words used to describe the immediate or acute short-term toxicity of the products. Danger with skull and crossbones, and the word poison printed in red ink mean the pesticide is highly toxic or extremely poisonous and will make you very sick and can cause death may cause death if absorbed through one or more routes, including skin, if swallowed, or if inhaled. Going down to less toxic, you have danger, followed by warning, and caution, which means slightly toxic, but it can still make you sick if absorbed through one or more routes, including skin, inhaled, or if it gets into your eyes. First aid instructions on the label can also tell you what to do if you get the pesticide in your eyes, inhale it, swallow it, or get it on your skin. It also provides a number to call in the case of an emergency. The precautionary statements explain the potential hazards to humans and domestic animals, health risks, and the protections you need to take while using the product. It will also tell you what PPE is required when mixing, loading, or applying the product, or when you clean, repair, and maintain application equipment. The supervising certified applicator is responsible for inspecting the equipment each day before it is used for mixing, loading, transferring, or applying pesticides to make sure it is working correctly. They also must know that the technicians know how to use the equipment safely and prevent exposure to yourself, others, and the environment. Always transport pesticides safely in a truck bed, cargo area, or other area away from the driver or passenger compartment. Check containers for leaks before loading and unloading and to protect them from damage, and monitor them during transport. Never leave pesticides unattended, and when possible, store them in a locked area. Information on the storage and disposal of unused products is typically found near the end of the label. Specific storage conditions such as the temperature range or distance from other products may be required to keep the product safe for future use or from creating a hazard such as a fire or environmental contamination. It is also important to read the label before using the pesticide in case of a spill. If a spill occurs, first protect yourself by using the PPE listed on the label. Always contact the supervising certified applicator for instructions, and in an emergency, call 911. The 4 C's for emergency spills are control the spill, stop the spill or leak by returning the container to an upright position, turning off the pump, etc. Contain the spill with an absorbent material such as kitty litter, sand, or clay. Clean up the spill. Never wash it down the drain, as this will only contaminate a larger area. Dispose of pesticide waste according to label directions in a safe and legal manner, and then contact the supervisor immediately. PPE. The most effective way to protect yourself from pesticides and pesticide residue before, during, and after using a product is to use your PPE required by the product label. It is the responsibility of the certified applicator to provide the PPE that is required by the product label and make sure it is worn and used correctly when mixing, loading, applying, or otherwise using pesticides. The PPE must be clean and in proper operating condition. Depending on the protection that is needed for the pesticide you are using, PPE can be made from different types of materials and can be reusable or disposable. Never use damaged PPE and never clean and reuse single-use PPE. If a label requires you to wear a respirator, it must be clean, working correctly, and inspected prior to use. The supervising applicator is responsible for ensuring that you take all the steps necessary to wear the respirator safely. To avoid contact with pesticides and pesticide residue, never remove your PPE when you are doing activities involving pesticides. When finished using a pesticide, remove each piece of PPE in a specific order to prevent exposure to residues. Dirty gloves should only touch the outside of dirty PPE, and clean gloves or clean hands can touch the clean parts of your PPE. Always wear gloves, eye protection, and boots when washing dirty PPE, and keep your clean clothes and clean PPE in areas free from pesticide or residue. At the end of your work period, you should immediately wash your body with soap, shampoo your hair, and change into clean clothes, especially before having any physical contact with others. This is important as your work clothes can have pesticide residues on them, and these steps reduce the risk of pesticide exposure to yourself and families. Since it's possible that harmful pesticide residues can be on you and your work clothes, there are things you can do to protect yourself, your coworkers, your children, and other family from being exposed to pesticide residue. Children and pregnant individuals are especially at risk, as pesticide exposure can lead to birth defects, learning problems, low birth weight, premature birth, or miscarriage. To keep everyone safe, you should wash your hands before touching your eyes or mouth, before eating, drinking, smoking, chewing gum, using the toilet, and handling your phone. Never take pesticide products or empty containers home with you. Even if they're rinsed, they're never completely free of pesticides. Do not put the pesticides in an unmarked container, and never pour pesticides from their original container into food or beverage containers. When you get home, remove your work shoes or boots before entering your house. Keep dirty work clothes separate from family clothes and away from children. Try and wash your clothes separately in hot, soapy water before wearing again. And when possible, rinse the washing machine at least twice before doing other family laundry. You can also air dry your work clothes outside when possible to allow sunlight to help break down any remaining residues. Exposure to pesticide and residues can be harmful to anyone, so keeping household members away from the treated areas or items that may have a residue on them can be incredibly important. Remember to keep pesticides out of reach of children. Contact with a pesticide or pesticide residue is called exposure and can affect some people more than others. Since pesticides are different from one another, so is the potential hazard or harm they can have on your health. An acute pesticide illness occurs shortly after a single or short-term exposure incident, and the symptoms are typically seen within 24 hours. The symptoms can include headaches, sweating, weakness, rapid pulse, or loss of consciousness. Acute pesticide poisoning can be serious and require medical treatment, and in extreme cases, people can die. A chronic pesticide illness results from the repeated exposures to small amounts of pesticide over a long period of time. The symptoms of chronic pesticide illness can be delayed, meaning they might not show up until long after the exposure has taken place. These delayed effects can even include cancer or damage to your respiratory or nervous system. Decontamination and first aid. Obviously, exposure to pesticides is hazardous. As previously mentioned, pesticides can enter your body through 4 routes: your skin, eyes, nose, and mouth. Knowing the symptoms of exposure through these routes and knowing what to do if you or a coworker are exposed is important for everyone's safety. Many of the pesticide exposures and injuries are from pesticides entering your body through the skin. Pesticide contact with your skin can occur at any point during the application process, including mixing, loading, making applications, drift, or contacting pesticide residue on plants or soil. If you think your skin is contacted or pesticide or residue, remove the contaminated clothing and wash the affected area immediately with soap and water to slow or stop the skin from absorbing more pesticide. If decontamination supplies are far away, use the nearest clean water, such as a stream or pond, in an emergency. Pesticides can get into your eyes from airborne dust or particles, splashes or spills, or broken hoses, spray mists, or residues from dirty PPE. The tissue of the eyes are extremely absorbent. Because of this, pesticides can easily move from your eyes to other parts of your body and cause serious health effects. If pesticides get in your eyes, flush it out immediately by rinsing with an eye wash kit or any source of clean water. Hold your eye open and flush for at least 15 minutes. To avoid further eye injury, make sure that the water is clean, not too hot, and never put anything in the water or in the eye. Get medical attention as soon as possible. Pesticides can enter your mouth when you eat, drink, smoke, or chew gum or tobacco without first washing your hands. Never eat or drink from any container used for pesticides, even if it has been rinsed. If a person accidentally swallows a pesticide, follow the emergency first aid directions on the label. Never make a person vomit if a person is unconscious, having convulsions, or is lying face up. The most important step is to get the person to a nearby medical facility as quickly as possible. Exposure can also occur by inhalation or breathing in pesticide vapors, dust, or spray particles through your nose and mouth. This type of exposure is more serious with some pesticides than others, particularly fumigants, which form gases. Once in the lungs, pesticides can enter other parts of the body quickly and damage other organs. Inhalation of fumigants can even cause permanent breathing difficulties or death. If someone has inhaled a pesticide, assess the situation to make sure it is safe to enter the area yourself, and never go into an enclosed area unless you protect yourself first with the appropriate respiratory equipment. If it is safe to enter, get the person to fresh air and loosen any clothing that might make breathing difficult. Inhalation of a pesticide can be very serious, and it is important to get emergency medical treatment as quickly as possible. Beside pesticide exposure, hot working conditions can also be harmful. If you're working in excessive heat with limited air movement or high humidity and start to feel sick or dizzy, it could be heat stress and not pesticide exposure. If you have heart problems, high blood pressure, diabetes, or other medical issues, you are at much higher risk for heat-related illness than someone without these conditions. Heat-related illnesses happen when you sweat and your body loses much-needed moisture and salt. The results can be mild to very serious, and the action you take can make a big difference. Take precautions to prevent heat-related illnesses by considering the heat and humidity you're working in, the type of PPE you're wearing, your access to shade, taking frequent short breaks, and most importantly, drinking plenty of water. The 4 most common heat-related illnesses, their symptoms, and first aid steps you can take are: for heat rash, this is a skin irritation such as hives or blisters. Try and keep the area dry, and if possible, change your work environment. Heat cramps. Depleting your body of salt and water leads to cramps, usually in the stomach, arms, and legs, which can be an early warning sign of heat illnesses. Symptoms of heat exhaustion include heavy sweating, clammy skin, extreme weakness, dizziness, nausea, and rapid breathing. Heat exhaustion can quickly become heat stroke, which is the most dangerous heat-related illness. This is where the body seriously overheats and cannot cool itself down any longer. Symptoms include hot and dry skin, little to no sweating, chills, a throbbing headache, confusion, and seizures. A person can become unconscious, suffer permanent disabilities, or die very quickly from heat stroke. Take these symptoms seriously and call 911 immediately, inform your supervisor, and stay with the person until professional help arrives. If you or someone else shows signs of heat-related illness, move them to a cool or shaded area, remove PPE and extra clothing, and drink water. If possible, use a fan or cool wet compress on the head or neck to cool down and take a cool bath or shower. When the body overheats and cannot control its temperature, you can die quickly without immediate medical treatment. Many of the symptoms of heat-related illness and pesticide poisonings can be similar. This can make it difficult to determine the cause of symptoms without knowing the circumstances behind them. Both pesticide poisoning and heat stroke can be life-threatening and require immediate treatment. You should know how and when to obtain medical care. If you suspect either pesticide poisoning or heat-related illness, the most important thing to do is get medical help immediately. Stay with the person until professional medical help arrives, and never drive yourself, as you may be placing yourself and others in even more danger. So in closing, this training has covered different topics related to potential hazards of pesticides, especially when using restricted use pesticides. We've explained the responsibilities that belong to you and the supervising certified applicator to prevent pesticide exposure. These responsibilities include reading, understanding, and following the pesticide label directions, and the importance of using the correct PPE required by the label. We've also reviewed what to do should an exposure occur, how to recognize the signs and symptoms of exposure and heat-related illness, and the importance to know basic decontamination and emergency first aid. If you suspect a pesticide use violation, you should contact DPNR and know who regulates the use of pesticide in your area and have those contacts available. Remember that states and tribes can have more restrictive requirements, and it's important to be aware of and comply with all applicable regulations. Industries that use technicians to apply RUPs under the direct supervision of a certified applicator want you to have information you need to be safe. These regulations are in place not only for your own protection, but also for the protection of your coworkers, family, and the environment. If you want a copy of the training record, or you have any questions about the topics covered in this video, ask the trainer or certified supervising applicator. So the following slides, as I mentioned in the beginning, contain additional supplemental information for pesticide handlers working in agricultural sites. These requirements are a part of the Federal Worker Protection Standard, which is a separate set of regulations, specifically for agricultural handlers. So a handler is anyone who mixes, loads, or applies pesticides in an agricultural setting, works or fixes application equipment, acts as a flagger, disposes or handles materials that come in contact with pesticides, including empty containers and PPE. This is a term defined under the Worker Protection Standard, which lays out additional requirements that we're going to go over in the next few slides. As an agricultural worker, the employer has a list of responsibilities under the Worker Protection Standard. They need to ensure that all workers have received annual pesticide safety training such as this. They need to provide application and hazard information about pesticides used on the establishment, provide copies of the application equipment and safety data sheets to you or a designated representative, inform you where the central location is, which includes decontamination supplies, display safety information at the central location and where supplies are kept, provide water, soap, and towels near where you are working for washing and containing spills, be informed of any pesticide exposures and provide medical personnel information about the exposure, and notify workers of restrictions in areas where applications are taking place. Annual training must be given every year. This training must be provided to a worker before they start work in a treated area, or a handler before performing any handling task. As a handler or worker, you can ask for a record of this training. Respirators are important if there is the likelihood of exposure to droplets or vapors that are toxic by inhalation. Make sure to check the product label, to ensure that you're wearing the right respirator for the job. This respiratory equipment is tested and certified by the NIOSH. It's identified by a TC code, and this is all outlined on the label if a respirator is needed. If a pesticide label requires you to wear a respirator, your employer must make sure that you are healthy enough to use the respirator type under the anticipated work conditions without suffering adverse health effects. This is achieved through a medical evaluation and a fit test. The medical evaluation includes a medical history questionnaire, a possible follow-up visit, and repeat evaluation if there is a change in the conditions of use or your health status. The fit test must be completed if the respirator type changes and completed annually. The central location contains a lot of important information and safety equipment when working around pesticides in an agricultural setting. This is a designated location that contains pesticide safety information, including safety data sheets, first aid and decontamination equipment, as well as the name, address, and telephone number of a nearby medical care facility, as well as pesticide treatment locations. Additionally, there should also be contact information for DPNR, the pesticide regulatory agency. The pesticide safety information must be displayed at the central location, at any permanent decontamination supply sites, and other decontamination locations where supplies are provided to 11 or more workers. The application information and safety data sheets must also be posted in the central location. This includes the name, EPA number, and active ingredient of all products being used, the crop or site treated, and a description of the treated area, dates and times the application started and ended, duration of the restricted entry interval, if that applies, and a copy of the safety data sheet. Decontamination supplies for pesticide handlers include water, soap, single-use towels, and a clean change of clothes to be used in case the handler's clothes or PPE becomes contaminated. These supplies must be located within 1/4 mile of the pesticide handler at mixing and loading sites and at the site where PPE is required. Decontamination supplies also include emergency eye flushing station, which should be located at any site where handlers are mixing or loading a pesticide that requires PPE eyewear or using a closed system under pressure. A little bit more about residues, which we mentioned in the technician portion of this training, but residues can be found in or on treated plants, including leaves, stems, the fruit or vegetable, in or on the soil where pesticide were applied, tractors, sprayers, and application equipment, used work clothing, pesticide mixing and loading areas, in the air as drift, in irrigation water or equipment, as well as in or on pesticide containers. Pesticide residues that remain on clothing can be a source of pesticide exposure to applicators and their families. There are several ways to avoid these hazards, including washing work clothes before wearing them again, washing work clothes separate from family clothes, using hot water, and decontaminating your washing machine by running a separate rinse cycle between loads. Application exclusion zones are another part of the worker protection standard and define a specific area that must be free of all people not directly involved in the application of a pesticide. If an unauthorized person enters the AEZ, the application must be suspended and can resume only once the person leaves. Nearly all outdoor applications have an AEZ of 25 to 100 feet. The size of the zone depends on the type of application equipment used. For a 100-foot AEZ, it's when a product is applied aerially by air blast or spray applications using extremely fine, very fine, or fine droplet sizes, or any products applied as a fumigant, smoke, mist, or fog. The 25-foot AEZ is pretty much anything applied other than any products that don't qualify for that 100-foot exclusion zone. So this is spray applications using medium, coarse, very coarse, extremely coarse, or ultra coarse droplet sizes, and sprayed from a height of more than 12 inches above the plant medium. There is no AEZ if that does not apply. Once again, handlers must suspend pesticide application if the worker or other person is in an AEZ. This includes areas outside the property. So if bystanders are walking by within that 20 or 25 or 100-foot radius, you have to suspend application until they leave. This is just a crosswalk of the different application types and the distance requirement required by the AEZ. And finally, just to end it on, read the label. We've said that probably 20 times in this presentation, but it contains instruction for use. first aid information, PPE requirements, storage and disposal instructions. As mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, DPNR and UVI will be hosting these trainings periodically throughout the year. Eventually, though, these trainings are going to taper off, and it's going to be the responsibility of the certified applicator or employer, in the case of agricultural handlers, to train their technicians or handlers. These presentation materials will be made available. They're also on the PERC website, which you can see the logo in the bottom left of the slides. And these presentations will be made available to you on the DPNR website, and it will be the certified applicator's responsibility to keep records and send those records to DPNR to ensure that all of their technicians have been trained annually. Yeah. And finally, just some contact information for questions regarding the new regulations. There's Nevlin Williams at DPNR. There's his contact info. And for any questions regarding certification and training, that is Dr. Amy Dreves at University of Virgin Islands, and there's her email. Thank you very much.